Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is another full review. We're doing Chambre Noire by Olfactive Studio. So yeah, I've had this one a while, and when I first smelled this one I wasn't that taken with it. It wasn't one that jumped out at me from the collection. Probably my favourites from this brand so far were Still Life, the original Still Life, which is a nice kind of fresh summery fragrance, and there was another one called Ombre Indigo, which I thought was very impressive, and I like that one too. It's kind of a watery, very strange, incensey fragrance that's completely unique and smells really interesting. But this one didn't quite take me on first impressions. Wearing it, I've quite enjoyed wearing it, testing it out for review, so we'll dive into it. When you first spray this one, I'll just remind myself of the top notes. There isn't a whole lot of change with this one. Kind of what you get is kind of what you get. I'm not. I wasn't sure how to describe this at first, but it kind of smells like the colour of the juice, which is brown. It is meant to be kind of like a leather fragrance, and you do kind of get that, but it's not like, I can't compare it to any other leather fragrances, but it does have the scent of brown, if that makes sense. It smells kind of vintage, and I would say it has an old style vintage smell. There is a violet note in here, which it doesn't come across like Parma violets or that candied kind of violet, but what it does to me, or my nose, is it kind of gives a powdery talcum powder kind of note. Not full on talcum powder, but a dusty kind of powdery note there. So I get kind of a brown vintage smell that will remind you a bit of leather and kind of resinousy as well, with a powdery note. But it's very pleasant. It's slightly sweet, but not too sweet. Plum or dried plum prune is listed in the notes. I don't quite get that on my skin. I honestly can't say that I smell plum in this at all, but there is a subtle sweetness. I wouldn't even say it's particularly fruity on my skin, but I get a brown vintage smell, something a little bit resinousy, and something sweet, but not plum. So I find it a little bit difficult to describe this one. It's interesting. I think it smells kind of comforting and cozy. I thought the sillage on it was quite lovely. I sat down in the car to walk Teddy after putting this on, and I got wafts of it around me. I was like, oh, this is quite nice. I quite like this one. As it starts to dry down, I do pick out a little bit more of the patchouli coming through, but the patchouli is sweetened with vanilla. So you get kind of it's an interesting combination when you combine patchouli and vanilla together, or patchouli and vanillin. If you've got stuff to blend at home, I would recommend doing that and then smelling the result. It does make a big difference to patchouli. Patchouli can be naturally sweet anyway. It can have slight chocolatey tones sometimes, but combined with the vanilla, it's interesting. And I do get that kind of combination in this fragrance. Is kind of a dusty, sweetened patchouli as it starts to dry down. Again, with this kind of slight powdery, almost floral powdery overtone, with this kind of general enveloping brown, leathery quality. So I can kind of imagine like old brown leather Chesterfield sofas in an old dusty library full of old books. It kind of gives me that impression. It's kind of vintage, it's old, it's dusty, it's brown, but it's nice at the same time. I can imagine like an old fireplace there, and you sat reading a book, quite comfortable. So yeah, I actually quite like it, but there is really no progression with the fragrance. I don't find it particularly changes at all. There is a slight wisp of I don't even quite want to call it incense, but going in that direction, a wisp of it. But in general, it's really, to describe it, brown, leathery, dried, sweetened patchouli, a little bit dusty and powdered from kind of the violet notes, but also I think the patchouli and vanilla combination adds a little bit of that as well as it dries down. And again, void on my skin of the plum. I've read other reviews on this, and people do smell the plum. On me, I don't kind of get that. It just doesn't give me that impression. Like I say, there is a sweetness there, but it doesn't. I think you imagine plum, but I don't directly get plum. I think you can pull that out of the atmosphere if you imagine it, and it's listed on the notes. If plum was never listed on the notes and no one ever mentioned plum, I don't think anyone would blindly guess that there's plum in this as a note. Personally, I think that's suggested, through the note breakdown. But altogether, I like it. It smells good. I didn't fall in love with this one. I don't think I would buy a bottle, but I enjoyed wearing it. I thought it smelled good. The sillage was soft. I didn't feel like it ever projected very far on me, but I got kind of wafts of it within the first hour or two. Like I say, especially getting in the car and then closing the door, kind of wafts of it up there. A little bit walking around in the wind, it would blow around me, and it was nice. I enjoyed it. Comforting, not too bold for me. In terms of performance for this one, not brilliant. It's kind of around 5 hours on my skin. 6 if I'm being generous, but I'm going to round it off at 5. Around 5 hours longevity with soft sillage and projection within the first hour. But I found all the Olfactive studios to be around that kind of ballpark. They're not brilliant in terms of performance that way, but the smell is very good. I don't fall in love with it, but it's cozy, it's warm. I would say in general it's unisex, but some women might say it's a little bit more masculine, with that kind of vintage, old kind of smell to it. But I don't see any reason why a woman couldn't wear it. And definitely a autumn winter fragrance for the evening and more kind of casual, laid back. Although I think you could, I think it would work quite well in more of a, I don't know what you would call it, not like a black suit and tie, but more like tweed suit and tie, or kind of more countrified rather than formal suit that way. A more relaxed kind of suit, or kind of more old-fashioned style that's a little bit more gentleman-y, then I think that would work dressed up. So yeah, altogether I like it. I don't love it, but definitely like it and appreciate it, and it smells interesting and cozy. That's about as good as I can describe it. I did find it a little bit tricky to put into words the feelings that I got from it, but that's as good as I can do. Hope you enjoyed the video. I know a lot of people do like this one, and I think it's probably a favourite from the brand for a lot of people. And if I were to buy 4 bottles from the brand, I would leave this one personally, and I'd buy Ombre Indigo and Still Life. Those 2 are my favourites still from the brand. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again next time with another one. Bye everyone.